Hello. Hi, I'm Kiza Hussein Saddam from Uganda. I'm also a Queen's Young Leader 217, a lawyer by profession, and I work with Uganda Youth Society for Human Rights and Lolesa organization. I'm so humbled to be here and we discuss on issues of climate change as I engage youth to empower them to be able to tackle climate change. Young people are increasingly becoming so aware of the climate change disasters, climate change impacts, and climate change uh, information. As we get aware of this information, there is also other misunderstandings of what all about for their own personal benefits, whereas others are using the climate change issue as an issue that really affects. So today I'm going to be taking to you, I'm going to be engaging you on how young people can get involved into climate change action. One of the things I'll share is what is it all about really climate change? Terms like adaptation, climate change, environment, mitigation. If you get these terms, then it will also be much easier to also understand what is all about climate change. Through our discussion also, we shall be discussing, with the knowledge of how do you get as a young youth, how do you get involved in taking action to mitigate or adapt to climate change action within your environment. Or even you also understand, you get the understanding of human activity. Then you also understand the different ways of climate mitigation, adaptation, and resilience. In addition, you also understand the renewable energy sources and technology that can be used to mitigate climate change. Further, you also get the knowledge of what are the types of green jobs that as a young person I can get involved, but also earn a living and equally create an impact in our environment. So, having said this, now let's go into giving a brief definition of the keywords that I'll be. As I proceed, don't forget to make a comment or ask a question. I'll be glad to answer that question. But also, I would like to understand what do you know about climate change and what are the issues that really feel that you need these issues addressed in relation to climate change. So, some of the keywords I will use in our discussion or in our capacity building session is environment. I've already started using it. Environment literally means surroundings or conditions in which a person, animal, or plant live or operate. So that condition you live in as a person, the things you do, the things you interact with, that's the environment. It can also literally mean the natural world or in a particular geographical area. Having said that, now let me give another definition of climate change, how we shall be referring to climate change. It is the large-scale or long-term shift in the planet's weather pattern or average temperatures. As simple as that. That is climate change. The long-term shift in the planet's weather patterns or average temperatures. Then mitigation, I'll be referring to mitigation, meaning that I'll be referring to the stabilization or the levels of heat trappings, the levels of heat trapping greenhouse gas. When we talk about mitigation, we're referring to things we can do that can reduce the greenhouse gases in our atmosphere. Then, when I refer to adaptation, I'll be referring to the adjustments in our ecological, social, or economic systems in response to the actual expected climatic stimuli and their effects or impacts. It refers to the changes in the processes, practices, and structures of moderate potential damages, or to benefit from the opportunities associated with climate change. So literary adaptation is all about having to adapt to a particular situation that has been created as a result of climate change, be it in areas which are rainy, be it areas where there is harsh drought, be it in areas where there is too much heat. How do you adapt to that environment and live into a harmonious environment? So let me now delve into the gist of our discussion today. I'll give you these facts and information so that it helps you as a young person. If you're discussing about climate change, you already know what is it all about. If someone tells you about climate change, you should not be in an ignorance. You should know that they are referring to things of this nature. So, among I wish to share with you some of the key facts of climate change. Worth noting that 2017 was one of the most hot years we've received in centuries. This came as a result of institutions like NASA, like UK Met Office, and other international bodies. They gathered all this data and finalized that 2017 was one of the hottest. Remember, we're just coming from 2016, which was also at one point the highest indicators of most years that we received too much heat. To 17, 2,075 gigatons of carbon into the atmosphere. So, and remember, 1 gigaton is equivalent to 1 billion tons of carbon dioxide. And now we're talking about 2017 gigatons. This is too much scaling, but also it's a wake-up call to the world that we are generating too much carbon dioxide in the atmosphere, yet we are doing less in reducing those carbon dioxide emissions, and also which exacerbates the risk of us as human beings, what we shall suffer as consequences of. Show that climate change is unequivocally there, and this has been reported by the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change under UN, and even other many bodies. The planet's average surface temperatures has risen 5 degrees Fahrenheit, 2.5 degrees. And remember, the world agreed under the Paris Climate Change Accord that we should not exceed 2.5 degrees. Actually, other nations believe that we should stay within 1.5 degrees if we can achieve that. So, this shows you how we are now accumulating too much carbon in the atmosphere, yet we have to also meet the target of 2.5 of staying below 2.5 degrees, meaning that we should take serious actions to meet our targeted goals. And doing that, we shall share some of the things that we young people can do, or even other members of our community can do in order to stay within of the high number or record number of extreme weather events that we've experienced as human beings. This has come as a result of our actions, indirectly, of course, others would say directly, but our actions provoke all these things that we're experiencing as human beings. As I proceed, I wish to see someone pop in and say hello. I would love to get to know you. But if you come in late, you can go and replay this. It will be available online. You can replay it anytime and get to understand what I discussed about. So, to proceed, okay, let's just proceed. I was just listening to someone who was online. Now, the scientific evidence is there. Others can discredit it, others can believe it. But the reality is that the world is getting hotter day by day. Infrastructure is being damaged, destroyed day in and day out. This is a total threat to our existence as human beings, but also a total threat to the all animals that we coexist within this world. And now, how do we get to, as youth, how do we understand where this carbon is coming from? Do we just believe that only carbon dioxide is just what we generate as human beings in terms of breathing in and out? Or there is other sources where this carbon emissions is greatly generated from? Allow me to share with you some of the areas where carbon oxide or greenhouse gases is highly generated. Among those, we have the natural sources and the artificial sources. Or else we have the natural sources and the man-made sources. So I'll start with the artificial sources. What women are responsible for in most cases. Let's talk about the cars we drive. As young people, I understand that we really love perhaps to drive because you feel maybe you can reach where you're going faster out of driving, or even you feel that is the cool thing for you to do. But I wish to inform you that cars are generating a lot of carbon dioxide in the atmosphere. Out of this diesel that they burn, then there comes out the carbon dioxide that is accumulated into the atmosphere. Even the airplanes, the airplanes that fly over these skies, they generate a lot of carbon dioxide. Atmosphere is from factories, industries, because of the too much gas that they generate out of processing these goods the products that they produce. When the industrial revolution came in existence, many countries were investing heavily into setting up factories and industries, without the knowing that this will have a ripple effect to us now. So today, factories should be also seen as one of the most emitters, plus bush burning, which could either be caused by people who are burning bush to clear the land, or as a result of natural causes, out of drought, lightning can cause bush burning, or anything that finds the bush when it is already dried up. It's easier to catch up fire. All that is the carbon dioxide that is generated in our atmosphere. Then some of the natural sources we have, like volcano, steel, plus methane that is generated out of rotten stuff or swamps and all that. Then we also have our own carbon dioxide that we contribute or generate out of breathing out. So now we've understood where this carbon dioxide comes from, all other greenhouse gases to do with methane and other types of gases like nitrogen. Now, what should we do? What should we do really to make sure that our world, our earth, stays safe for us is intact as we've heavily invested in it? Some of the things that we can do is, of course, embracing solar as a source of energy. Here, I'll refer to some of the things we can do, but these things can either apply in a form of mitigation or adaptation. So solar will help us. We're aiming to stay within below 2.5, rather below 2.0 degrees Fahrenheit or 1.5 degrees. So in order for us to meet that target, we must now cut down on the amount of carbon dioxide that we generate into atmosphere. So if we invest heavily into solar energy, which is actually one of the reliable sources of energy, considering the fact that we have enough solar energy coming from the sun, we can easily tap this sunlight, sun energy, and process it to become the energy that it can use in our households or even in our businesses. Then also investing heavily in wind energy is one of the ways we can cut down on the carbon dioxide. How? By us tapping this wind and converting it into energy, we shall reduce on relying on coal energy, which is generated from the coal mines, which has a serious impact on our environment through the carbon dioxide that is generated out while processing it. But also relying on other fuels like diesel and other sources of carbon dioxide. Then we can also choose to invest in hydroelectric energy. I know most of the countries, be it in Europe, in Africa, Asia, hydroelectric energy is widely understood because that's what is common. But also, we should consider also other means to back up our goal of achieving the 2.5 degrees in which the world should stay below. So if we invest heavily in hydroelectric energy, that is only generated, where power is generated out of water that turns turbines, not using diesel energy to generate hydroelectricity power, but rather using water to generate energy is a better source. Then areas where you have this source of thermal energy to do with underground heat. So countries which have those underground heat can easily tap it and convert that underground heat into energy that can be used for the household and day-to-day work that we run with the support of energy. So also tapping into biothermal energy. I'll share with you some of the examples of great work. changing the waste into, rather tapping the waste to convert it into biothermal energy. Also using the waste to generate out energy through different processes. So also embracing biothermal energy is one of the best ways, and this can be done through processing the vegetable waste, or be it in our latrines and all that, and also using the animal waste. All this can also create energy. Then of greenhouse gases, we should also make sure that we keep our oceans clean and our lakes clean. How do we do that? Of course, for you to keep our oceans clean or our lakes clean, we should make sure that we don't generate a lot of plastic materials and throwing them into our oceans, or even other things. When they are clean, free from plastics and other materials, they help into absorption of the greenhouse gases, or the carbon dioxides, but also they help in it too much heat and absorbing it. So the better we keep our oceans clean, the better we live into a more safer world. But also keeping our oceans clean, free from acid, helps us have access to clean water, which is also good for us as people. Then absolutely, growing trees is one of the best things youth can also champion. I'll say this because myself, I've run a project on climate change, where I've had to deal with various communities, trying to empower them in order to understand the use of planting trees, either be it in climate mitigation, or through avoiding soil erosion, or be it for the sake of economic gain at a later stage when they have maximum matured for harvest. So these are things that young people also can push forward. You can either push your countries through policy making to embrace wind energy, to invest heavily into wind energy, or sources of greenhouse gases and invest into clean energy like solar. Affordable solars are everywhere. The world is producing now many solar panels that are affordable for the poor communities. Then also, as a youth, you can also use your knowledge to, first of all, by gaining that knowledge and apply it into tapping clean energy through biothermal energy or geothermal energy. Young people are doing those. They're running projects where they're tapping energy from biothermal sources. Having said that, now adapting to life in a changing climate is so crucial. We all live. We love to live, much as we know we shall depart at one point. But we cannot be ignorant of the fact that a lot of extreme events are happening which are a threat to our lives. And things that are taking place that are threatening our existence come as a result of climate change. I highlighted some: harsh rainfall, be it drought, be it extreme heat. All these, they actually the primary cause of that. So, how do we now get to adapt to this environment amidst of climate change impacts? And here are some of the things we can do to adapt to this, to get this, to allow the human to live harmoniously with or live safely along with climate change impacts. By avoiding encroachment on forests or cutting trees will help you live in an environment that could be dynamic in nature. Maybe if there are harsh rainfall, those trees and forests will help the community not to be greatly impacted by landslides or be impacted by floods. These but also in a season of too much heat, these trees will work as shade for the animals or even for people. Then these trees will also give you oxygen, which you badly need to live. So also in addition, these trees help into absorbing carbon dioxide. So as youth, as young people, we should aim to make sure that we avoid encroaching on our forests or cutting down trees as much as possible. And this you can do it through empowerment of planting trees or keeping our forests, and also the benefits that the environment can benefit from having a greener environment. You also can take part into it. You can rightly go and plant trees so that those trees can be a vivid example to other people to see that young people are doing something that really resonates. Should avoid sea level encroachment. Why many countries are being threatened almost to extinction. Some of the island countries are almost disappearing, or predictions are there that some island countries might not live longer to exist. It's because of how, as people, we are encroaching on the through either sand mining or construction of any nature. So as we do that, we allow this water, when there's high sea rise, this water covers the other land, and this threatens now the existence of people on those island nations, but also it threatens the economic business that are taking place there. So we should avoid that to encroach on seas so that we live hand in hand with these seas or oceans or lakes, but also keep our land there for us to live on. Hey, for extreme weather events. Get prepared for the extreme weather events. Events like rain, harsh rain, drought, cyclones, floods, all these things, as human beings, we should now start preparing for them. I know we youth, we have energy to do great things. As a youth, you feel you can run faster, perhaps if there is maybe your cyclone or something, or you feel like you can withstand these other challenges, natural challenges. But mind you, these things, when they take place, no one is immune, be children, be the youth, be the old, women, and men. So what we should do is to rather get prepared in order to adapt to these situations. And how do you get prepared? By, first of all, promoting awareness to the community about how these events occur, or by putting on mechanism or working hand in hand with our stakeholders to give early warning systems, to install early warning systems so that by the time these events are to occur, the community is aware that these events are coming. This has, I have seen an example of, let's say, in Egypt, where they have the public announcement system, where people move in public announcing the next weather forecast, so that people who are, let's say, in farming, they know that the other week it will be, we shall receive more rain or we shall receive more sun, so that they get prepared if they need to do irrigation or if they need to create channels for water so that water does not wash out the crops, or even plan when to plant their crops. And this applies also us as in our livelihood. As we have our kids home who are planning to go to school every day, you have the old people staying at home. You wish that these people still live. You can go out as a young person and find them. You find your grandmother or your mother at home. So when these people are not knowing, they're not aware of what will take place the next minute or the next night. Most likely they could be caught unaware of these extreme events. So the best way to do is find the ways to get information prior to these events happening, but also prepare your infrastructure. If you need to rise, if you need to elect your walls in order to stop water from penetrating your houses, if you need to find the, if you need to preparation of these extreme events, and this will help us to live uh, even when living in a most dangerous environment of climate change impacts. Then people, this I don't know if it happens most in Africa alone, but also in some parts of Europe. Young people don't really want to get involved into agriculture, and this is impacting us in a way that there is a high demand of food on a global scale, yet we are not producing enough for consumption of the over 7 billion people. There is poverty, there is hunger poverty everywhere in most countries. And crops are being affected by climate change. You grow crops, the next day something happens, either rain or too much sun, then crops cannot mature to give either to be ready for harvest. So for you to, how do young people now come on board is to first of all make research, get to research about not all crops are resilient to climate impacts. Some crops are better or are well in some areas because of the weather or the climate that is will be there for the particular period, yet others are not. So after doing research, then also empower with the information you generate with local community members who are not aware of that information or the types of crops to grow in their locations. Equip them with that information through using media like radio, TV's discussion, or community hall discussions, or circulating it via social media. Many people now own phones. So by doing that, people will plant the right crops in the right areas and in the right time, and this will help us to adapt to the climate change. Then food security. As young people, food security is something that we should think about dearly. For us to live, we must have something to eat. Humans cannot live without eating, and even animals, they need what to eat. That's why we have to keep our environment green for animals, but also for us to be aware, to be safe amidst of climate change disasters. We should be able to have something we can eat in it. We cannot prepare or grow it at that moment when we have those disasters. Recently, I was hearing a discussion from BBC where One Acre Fund in a great work. They're empowering communities to have food security measures like storing their food, their harvested food in groceries, which that food cannot be affected by either fear of being damaged or by any different bacteria. They store that, they harvest it in large quantities, then they store it in the granaries. So every moment or any time there is sudden change into climate and perhaps there's too much heat or plant crops or there's a soil erosion out of floods or harsh rainfall, they are sure that we can still live for the next years out of having food that we stored prior to those events. So this also now applies to us as young people. For us to live and our communities to live and even everyone to live, we need to put in place mechanism of keeping food for ourselves and for others to feed on in case they can either destroy our crops or even have impact on the time we are supposed to grow crops. And this can be done by youth rightly getting involved into agriculture. You participate in it with the aim of generating a lot of food and store it, but also for economic element, you grow crops and sell. When you generate or grow a lot of crops and harvest a lot, automatically people will have to buy at either cheap prices and will have to store the food so that they can feed on it in case of uh, uh, situations comes where they cannot grow crops or harvest anything. I remind you that we are getting to know what youth can do in order to get involved into climate change action, or how are youth relevant in terms of their actions, and what is their role, how do they come on board into climate change action. So going on to adaptation, youth can also get involved into public education. I've talked about creating awareness in our communities so that we equip our communities with information and knowledge of how to adapt and mitigate climate change. So this one I've done it. I've moved over most actually all the parts, all the four regions of Uganda, sensitizing communities on climate change, but also on how to adapt or mitigate climate change through the everyday behaviors that we own, or the actions that we can take, either planting trees or using that are relevant and helpful in keeping our earth green and safe from carbon oxide gases. Those policies could either be banning use of polythene bags, banning, putting sanctions on encroachment on forest and cutting down trees, or even penalizing people who generate a lot of greenhouse gases, or maybe factory owners and all that. So you too can do public education as a young people, and you help the world to get prepared and get in a know of what can happen if we fail to do something on climate change. Medical interventions is crucial to the extent that people suffer when these climate change impacts take place. When there's, let's say, give an example, floods. Uh, those floods can either destroy our homes and people can suffer damages or other types of bodily harm, or people can suffer as a result of malaria, uh, which is got out of mosquitoes that breed on this logging water, or even too much heat in our environment can cause is dangerous for our health, either skin infectious diseases, the other can even cause cancer. Too much heat can cause cancer. Youth, we are dynamic in nature. There are those who have professionalized in medical field, others into environmental fields. So those who are into medical field, it is imperative that you equip communities with medical knowledge, or with medical knowledge, how this community should behave when something happens in a scientific way. Let's say, take an example. If there has been too much rainfall, the community should know that keeping water within around your house can attract mosquitoes, which can have a ripple effect on your kids or you yourself. Communities how to behave in terms of the food we're supposed to eat. How is it healthy for yourself? And this will come in terms of people choosing not to eat a lot of meat, because when you eat meat is not good for the environment. People decide to be vegan or vegetarians in order to avoid the consequences of either diabetes or of having or of or of having these different diseases that arise out of eating meat. So youth who are into medical or who can have that knowledge of empowering communities on how to handle situations of climate change impacts, which cause uh, medical, which warrant medical awareness, should also spend much time into doing research. Then infrastructure development, such as water storage systems, are so crucial. As countries face droughts, people need more water that they can use for irrigation, but also for home use and business use or other activities. So it's crucial that we set out, or we either have a dialogue with our governments or other policymakers to have water storage equipments within local communities and other urban areas to make sure that communities don't run out of water. The that can be used, such as in areas of consumption of energy. Air conditioning is necessary when there is a lot of heat. This will help you to live quite well, comfortably, so that you are not exposed to too much heat, which is dangerous for your body. But also it will it will help in cutting down the costs of, let's say, people, if they get sick, they'll go to hospital. So you cut down the cost of getting sick. So this air conditioning consume energy, of which energy, most of the energy that we use today is from sources of greenhouse gases or carbon dioxide emitters. But the best way, you can also connect these air conditioning systems, which are designed to consume small energy or little energy, and they can equally generate this energy or tap this energy from clean renewable sources like solar, like wind, and other sources that we have discussed. Then gradual immigration can also be the one ways that people can adapt to the environmental disasters or climate change impacts. When cyclones comes, or when droughts hit, when floods takes place, people need to still live and live the next and be able to live without extinction out of or perishing out of these disasters. How do you do this? Is when these events happen, people should know that there are times when you have to leave your beloved house, or you have to vacate your land, which you perhaps have spent a lot in terms of buying it or even keeping it altogether. So, but you allowing to sacrifice your life for the sake of land or house doesn't make sense, because If you cannot live, you can't live in it. So the best way is to know when do you have to migrate. And this information can be generated by us young people by doing research, by getting the right information from the right sources, be ministerial or government bodies, and other institutions that can help you get this information and predict that maybe the next day is going to be like this, so people have to move. Take an example. We've had these situations take place either in countries like island countries like Babadu, like some parts of US recently where they happen those cyclones and all that. When this happens, people are warned or informed to migrate, to move to some other safe areas. And it can only take place successfully people can come in, doing that work of informing people, mobilizing people, but also helping in the migration, immigration of those people from within some parts of the country to other parts of other country, or within the country. This may not happen in just one incident, but can be gradual. If you feel like in 10 years this area could be covered with water out of sea rise, then you could be thinking of relocating to other areas where they are more or less going to be affected by sea rise. So increase in tropical cyclone early warnings is also one of the things that can be beneficial for our communities to adapt to those events. When people are aware of those events that will take place, then it helps into cutting down the number of people who could have died if those events took place without knowing or being informed. So those early warnings are so crucial that they prepare the minds and prepare the communities to move where it need be, but also take some action that can be helpful in becoming more resilient or becoming more ready for these events. So I know, yes, this sound already know, but this is for the benefit of those other people who don't know, these young people who don't understand what are some things you can do to get ready to these climate change impacts, or what can you do to keep our environment safe for human existence. Then, remember, this is a discussion. You can always write to me, ask me something you think to clarify, or I need to expound more, and I will be glad to have that discussion or answer your questions. And now, yes, we understand that there is mitigation, there is adaptation, and there is about resilience. Being resilient is all about being ready and able to withstand some of the climate change. In relation to climate change, you'll be there, or even be stronger enough affected by these impacts of climate change, like extreme rainfall, heat, and all other things. So, how do you now apply resilience in our human existence so that we can live more longer and see, or even other generations be able to live on this world? One of the areas we can discuss resilience is by food system resilience. Uh, as I earlier discussed, as the world continues to emit too much carbon dioxide, then this carbon dioxide traps heat that is supposed to bounce back into atmosphere. Then this heat will be having a serious impact on our agriculture through either drying our crops before maturity, or even us as human beings, So when there's this too much heat trapped or even gases, some crops cannot be able to mature, be ready to be harvested, or even to be able to be grown in particular areas. So one of the area or things we're supposed to do as young people or even any other person is to do more research into types of food that can be grown within particular areas, or types of food that can withstand these types of events or the weather that takes place, or even the types of food that can be able to withstand the bacteria that will either come as a result of changing climate. And this is being done. There's a lot of that is taking place. They are trying to do different, trying to mix different either different food to create maybe a more resilient type of crop you can grow. Let it be cassava, let it be maize, and other things, which are not necessarily should be those crops or things that are to be planted, much as they are resilient, they should not be harmful for our health in terms of causing cancer or other things. So there is need more communicating this information with communities so that they know the type of seed to grow for agriculture. So food system resilience does not only stop in agriculture, but also in being able to mature amidst of events of this nature. Some crops can be either which can be grown into more rugged areas can be grown there. Then other crops which cannot grow well in waterlogged areas can grow in the more dry areas. So this all information is out of research, but also communicating it with local farmers. Then community resilience is also necessary to live the next generations. And resilience can be manifest in different ways, either by the infrastructure that is put in place. It can make a community resilient. Maybe taking an example of some of the communities that can be resilient. If I remember well, some parts of the countries in I've forgotten. Okay, I'll remember it. Maybe that particular area. Communities decided to elect high fences in order to obstruct that water that could come as a result of floods or high sea level. So that community in the nature is actually it's India. It's part of India. It's that community is preparing itself against predicted or foreseen impacts that could be or foreseen events that could take place. Equally, like how you can get ready for anything that could attack you, either by taking right measures. Even communities need to put up resilient mechanisms that can protect their communities and their families. And this could be those measures could be health based in terms of health, could be infrastructure based in terms of infrastructure, maybe roads and all other things, or bridges or fences, or it could be the getting food enough that can keep these communities alive through right storage mechanisms. Then also we have resilient enough to not be impacted by climate change. And this can be either putting up right policies that help into controlling the economy. And this we can discuss it in relation of either agriculture or infrastructure or even the technology. Countries which have moved away from using greenhouse gases now switching to clean renewable energies, they are more likely going to tap that economic boost because people are switching now. So if anything happens, these economies are more resilient to the global dynamics of either falling into demand of particular products that are not clean for our environment, or even infrastructure itself. If loads are systems, then you might likely not be going to see roads which are being either destroyed by floods or being impacted by other events that can destroy properties of like bridges and roads. Meaning that much as those events can take place, governments can still maintain the infrastructure in place, and that will cut down on the cost of repairing them. Also, we can talk about water we use in our homes should be free from being contaminated. But also we should be assured that we can still have more water in our homes for home use or for other things, agriculture and other things. And this can happen only if we put in the right mechanisms. Either you decide to you decide to use different detergents in order to avoid water being contaminated, or else you put the proper water storage mechanisms like tanks and other things that can keep this water safe and shortage of water out of drought or other things that can impact on accessing water. Then, out of these things, to be seeing one of my PowerPoints being showcased, but there are different which showcase what young people are doing. Others, the example of bamboo, people who are using bamboo to make bicycles. People are running out from now depending on these uh, products or equipment that have uh, I say this because a lot of ore, iron ore, or even coal is processed to put out some things, either be the metal and all that. So if people can now cut down on reliance on such products and make their own products which are environmental friendly, it is more good for, first of all, for environment, but also for a new innovation that comes on board that gives us solutions to the dynamic changes in the climate and the needed solutions to such impacts. So young people, by being innovative and creative to create such uh, innovations of bicycles made out of bamboo trees, it is good for economy, but also good for environment. Other youth, you say they're using a the waste, either be it the waste vegetables or the waste from the human waste, processing it and creating green energy. Many youth are involved into growing trees on large scales, and the other youth are also involving into uh, science-related information that is related to environment, but also involved in creating means of transport that are more or less dependent on fossil gases, fossil gas uh, uh, substances like oil or like fuel. That I mean using maybe cars that are electrically powered, like examples of many countries are doing investing even in that. So even young people, you have a gap for you now to do more research, but also invent some many things that can be useful for economies, but are also useful for our environment. As I conclude, the jobs that young people can use, can do, and and also earn a living, earn money, but also be good for environment. So some of that I can share with you, they includes being, and that is so crucial, being in educating environment, the rather our communities about the issues of climate change, issues of environment, issues of growing the right crops. That is one of the jobs that you can earn a living by either charging a small amount of money through workshops and all that, or going to schools and teaching. Then also uh, others are involved into others are other youth can decide to become solar panel solar panels the rooftops of the houses or even ground connecting all these. So by doing that, you can also earn a living planting trees. Tree growers earn a lot of money through nursery beds and garden planting, or even conservation biologists. Those also, it's an area you can decide to put your career in. Green entrepreneurs, such as green health workers or herbalists or nutritionalists, are earning a lot of money from that kind of jobs. I'm doing it speed so that time was already not on our side. Then there's green educators. Like I said, green educators are earning some good money. It's not actually not all about money. You can also do it for the right cause to save human beings from disasters. Then there are environmental lawyers. Environmental lawyers earn a living and by also create impact in the environment by either suing companies uh, that are not complying with policies or regulations which are supposed to regulate the amount of gases that is generated. Or the green architectures, people who plan for for construction of the houses or urban planning, they plan for the towns and urban the cities. People who design houses that are environmental friendly in a manner that you can grow trees, or those houses can allow in some amount of light, so you don't have to rely on lighting your house, or the amount of heat can accommodate. All these can be out of green architectures. So those are some of the jobs. So where do we get the money, people? We want to do empowerment of fellow communities. We want to educate other communities or other fellow young people. But in most cases, we are bogged down have institutions that create that money. So some of the institutions that can sponsor or even fund you out if there is a call or if you apply, it's a green fund. There's a green fund that was allocated out of nations who felt that there should be a fund to be used, either given to governments or civil society that are working towards reducing reducing carbon gases in atmosphere. World Bank has many institutions that invest or give funds to the youth initiatives, but also who invest in projects that are climate friendly. Then United Nations Children Fund provides for some amount to children projects that are aimed to empower children in getting involved. Then also the Rolex Award gives a lot of amount to young people who are using their projects that are environmentally friendly. But there are many more. There are many more. These are just a handful of them. Go to your countries. Usually countries have budgets allocated to different areas. So there's an area of environment, preserving the environment, and such budgets they allocate money to be given to projects that can be useful in helping the country meet its obligations of keeping our our countries in compliance with the Paris Agreement, which was signed in and adopted in 2015. So I hope you could have either you could have felt that you've understood. Pick one or two, or even everything that I mentioned, and you feel that these things are helpful for our environment, but also are helpful for us youth to be aware on what to do in order to get involved in climate change mitigation and adaptation. Now I finalize my capacity building session. I know it came out a bit late because of technology issues. So I believe we can still catch up with each other, maybe have other more discussion either through my email or using Kiza SH. Then we can further the discussion on how youth can get involved. Until we get another session, then I wish to sign out and say thank you for being online, thank you for taking part, and thank you for those who will still catch up with this recording later. Goodbye.